Hi guys, it's Tara and welcome to Crafting with Curly Cues. Today I want to share with you my entry for the Lawnscaping Challenge number 122, which is watercolor. And I'm going to create this really fun card with my Zig Clean Color Real Brush pens. So today I'm experimenting with this Bristol Smooth White cardstock with my Zig Clean Color pens. A lot of people have said that this is just absolutely the best paper to use with your Zigs, and I discovered that I had some in my stash, so I thought I would give it a shot and see how it compares to the Canson XL cold press watercolor paper that I really like using with my Zigs. So I'll let you know what I think as I go along here. So to start, I'm using the Say Cheese stamp set from Lawn Fawn, and I'm using this Polaroid frame, and I've got my Ranger Archival Jet Black ink, and I'm going to stamp that on some of that Bristol Smooth watercolor. It's not actually watercolor, it's just Bristol Smooth white cardstock. And I'm using this ink because it is water resistant, so it's not going to bleed when I use my watercolor technique that I'm using today. So that is why I chose that ink. Sorry, I just lost my train of thought. I don't know what happened there. And so next I'm going to come in with the Happy Trails stamp set, and I'm going to stamp a couple of those images next to this frame. So I'm making this card for my dad. It's his birthday on February 2nd, Groundhog's Day. My birthday is tomorrow, so him and I have always gotten to kind of celebrate together, which is super fun. Sometimes it's even on Super Bowl. Well, it used to be. Now they've added an extra week to the NFL season, so it's not really on Super Bowl anymore. But anywho, I wanted to make a birthday card for my dad, so I wanted it to be obviously more masculine, and then he is really an avid camper. Him and my mom go use their RV like all summer long every year. So I thought this would be a really great stamp set to bust out for him. And you can see I stamped that little car. I didn't actually end up using that, but I thought I was going to originally. So, you know, hey, you modify, you roll with it. That's just how it goes. So I used some Post-it tape to mask off a side of that Polaroid frame. And now I'm going to stamp some of these little trees in the background. So I'm doing some like really lazy masking here, and part of the reason I was okay with that was because I knew that later I was going to kind of distress this and make it look vintagey, so I thought that if it wasn't like perfect, it would kind of go with the theme. But you can see I'm missing like a whole chunk of that tree, and I debated trying to get it in there, and then I was like, you know what, it'll be fine, like I'll make it work. So I am not really planning this at all. I just kind of stamped those where I thought the ground would be, so luckily it worked out for me. But now I'm going to go in with my Zigs and I'm going to do some coloring. So right off the bat, I noticed you can see how like incredibly wet my paper is staying. So this is not, like I said, it's not a watercolor cardstock. It's just a cardstock. It is ridiculously smooth, like baby's butt smooth. And the ink is kind of sitting on top of the paper for a second before it really sinks in. So you can see how shiny it is because it's staying wet. It took me a couple coats to kind of blend it. I'm just like super not used to this super smooth paper. I usually use watercolor cardstock, and I haven't had any problems with the Canson XL cold press that I usually use as far as these pens not wanting to blend. I have used them on some Tim Holtz watercolor cardstock, and I was not able to get a good blend, and I didn't find that that was my preferred cardstock for this coloring medium. But I've always liked the Canson. But I know like Nicole McGurk is one who's always talking about how much she loves this Bristol paper with these pens. So I wanted to give it a shot. There's a little bit more brushstroke left in that grass than I wanted, but I didn't want to oversaturate my paper. But I don't think that it looks bad at all. And they definitely blended together well. Like you'll see here on my little camper, I almost have an issue with the reds where they're blending too well and I can't seem to get any dark red shadow like at all. I come in with just about every color of red that's in this 60 pack of Zig markers, and I just like can't get shadow. It's all just blending into itself, which I guess is really awesome, but I kind of want that shadow too. So anyway, I'm kind of on the fence, I think, about this paper. I think I'm going to try it again and do kind of some different images. I did a lot of like the grass and the sky on this one is a larger space than I typically would do. And so I think that's kind of skewing my perspective. I want to try with this paper again on like just some like little critters or something and see how I like it. So for my little camper, you can see I wanted the top to be white, and I accidentally got my wet brush in that red color and kind of made the top pink, which is not really great for my dad's masculine birthday card. But because I knew I was going to be kind of distressing it later, I figured that it would end up getting covered up, and it totally does. If I wasn't distressing this later, I might have restamped and recolored this image just because I didn't really want the little pink top on the trailer. I made a Valentine's trailer inadvertently, but that was not the plan. So I went in and I kind of covered it up as best I could, and then I just, went on my merry way. So I'm going to color in some of these little accents on the trailer with some black colors and gray colors. That is a gray marker. I know that the little piece looks blue there in the video, but it's not. It's totally gray. So anywho, I hadn't played with my Lawn Fawn in forever, so I was like really excited, like almost giddy, digging through my Lawn Fawn box of stamps, trying to figure out what to put together for this card. So don't you love that feeling, like when you haven't used something that you really love in a while and then you get it back out and it's just like this whole like feeling of reconnecting with an old long lost friend? Like I feel like Lawn Fawn and I have just rebonded, and I can't wait to continue working with all the different sets that I have, and so much cute stuff that they released at CHA, so I can't wait for some of that stuff to come out either. But I'm trying to control my spending this year. It's going to be hard because, the companies, they're just so stubborn and they refuse to put out not cute sets. So what's a girl to do? I just kind of have to spend my whole paycheck on stamps and goodies. I'm sure I'm the only one out there with this problem. You guys probably don't have that issue at all. But anyway, so I colored the inside of my windows with some orange and yellow. I want it to look like there's happy campers inside of this trailer, having a good old time. And then I could not figure out what color to paint the curtains and the door. Like I was really struggling. So I just went with brown. Again, I'm gonna kind of vintage up this card. I want it to look like Dad found this Polaroid of the camping trip that we had when I was like 4 or something like that. So that was my thought in my head when I made this card. So it doesn't really matter that it's a brown door. It's not super pretty, but it works. So once I get the door colored, I'm going to dive into coloring the sky. And I gotta say, the sky was kind of my favorite part of coloring this. I think that it turned out super awesome, like way cooler than I anticipated it would turn out. And I love when that happens. So my plan here was to kind of do like an ombre blue and have it be darker like back behind where that hill is, and then get like progressively paler as it goes up towards the top of the photograph. And I really wanted, like, part of why I wanted to use my zigs, not only did I want to test out this paper, but I wanted to make sure that all my backgrounds and stuff stayed really, really vivid, because I knew I was going to be distressing it. And so I didn't want any like muted colors to get super like lost in the distressing. I still wanted you to be able to tell that the sky was blue and the grass was green. So I went with the zigs because they have just really bright, awesome pigment and color. So it totally worked out super well. So you can see I put a darker blue just barely at the top, and then I went in with my medium shade, and now this is my lightest blue. And I'm coming in and I'm just pulling that color out almost to the top, and then I'll come in over the top with my slightly wet paintbrush and pull that color all the way up to the top of that Polaroid frame. And then I do take my slightly wet paintbrush and go back over the whole sky, because I just really want there to not be any distinct lines between the different shades of blue, and I don't want any like brush strokes anywhere. So I'm kind of going over and just smudging that color around so that it's all nice and blended and you get that really cool blended look. And then I went over that line in between the grass and the sky to kind of blur it a little bit, just because obviously you want to know which one's the grass and which one's the sky, but in real life you wouldn't see this like harsh like line. So that is the sky. I think it looked super cool. I really love the way that this turned out. So now that everything is happy and colored, I'm going to go ahead and fussy cut it out here using my Fiskars scissors, and then I'm going to dive in with my vintage photo distress ink and get this stuff old looking. So I have to admit it was a little bit painful because this scene is really pretty and I kind of liked it all nice and bright and vivid, but I had a plan and I was going to stick to it, dang it. So before I did that, I lined the edges with my black soot distress marker. I really love to do this when I fussy cut. It just kind of takes away the that white edge and makes it look like you cut everything out like a genius, brilliant cutter. Professional cutter, is that a thing? I don't know. If it is, I need to train to be one because I would like that job. So anyway, I'm just going over the entire image. So I want to get it all over my colored area, all over the outsides, just everywhere on this image, and just really vintage the heck out of this photo. So it's not very often you get to use your vintage photo distress ink to actually vintage a photo. So I was excited to do that. I kind of went in extra dark in a couple spots just to kind of give it that aged look, like maybe the sun was more in the middle but not on the outside. And then don't forget to do the elements that you're going to put on top, because that way you don't have a brand new shiny trailer on top of your vintagey photo. So I vintaged up the trailer also. And now I'm going to come in and just even more distress this with using my distress sprayer here. And I'm going to put some water speckles and get a big blob in the bottom and make sure I get some on the trailer, and then I'm going to dab that off. So now not only has this photo been sitting in the sun too long, but somebody like spilled a soda on it at some point and it's got all these stuff. So I wanted to curl the corners up, and I realized that the white on the back was going to look silly when the corners were curled up. So I went ahead and just distressed the edges on the back so that I could curl things up and have it just be consistent when you saw the back of that little corner. And then I snipped the side here a little bit and then kind of tweaked those torn edges in and then covered them with the ink so that it was, again, consistent, and just gave it that just extra old vintage funky look. So I really love the way that this photo turned out. I think it looks super cool. I love when the camper's on top of it. It's just super fun. And now I'm going to work on my background. So I did put the background directly on my card base, and my card base is made out of the same Bristol Smooth White cardstock, and I cut it down to be an A2 card, so 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and it is side folding. And then I'm going to use the Chevron Backdrops stamp set, also from Lawn Fawn. And it's got a few different chevron patterns, and I selected one, and I want my background to also be watercolor. So I'm going to take my zig markers and I'm going to color directly onto my stamp. So this is just a fun way to use the zigs in another new way to create a really cool watercolor look. I went with this kind of brown corduroy burlappy color, and I am going to put a turquoise teal color in the middle. I want the stripes to be alternating color. I'm not coloring the full stamp. I want this to kind of look grungy, vintagey, and so I want them to kind of stagger on the end. I don't want it to be a perfect line where they stop. So once I got those colored, I'm just going to stamp that directly on my paper. And I realize in hindsight, all that 2020 and stuff, that I should have spritzed it with a little bit of water so that that ink smushed a little bit better when I stamped it. But what I found as I was cleaning my stamp with my baby wipe, and I was adding water to the stamp because the baby wipe was moist. And by the end, I had enough water on my stamp that when I put the color back on, it just smushed really great when I stamped it. So you can kind of see the difference there between the top and the bottom chevrons, but I like both looks. I just should have put a little bit more water on that first one, but I think it turned out really cool. Like, it was exactly what I was envisioning in my head, which I love when that happens. So now I wanted to go in and I wanted to distress that so that it matched the rest of the card. I will tell you, this super smooth cardstock, when you're using your distress inks, it was like fingerprint crazy. Everywhere I touched, there was a fingerprint left. I had to be really careful about it. It was interesting. I have my tie-dye Disney World shirt on. Did you see that? It's like, I made them custom because we're that nerdy. So when we went to Disney World, we had matching family tie-dye shirts. Anyway, that's a side note. So I added some splatters of that vintage photo, just smushed it on my glass mat there and added some water and flicked it with my paintbrush. And then also put some spritzes of water on there, and then went ahead and dabbed all that off just for some really light, just extra goobers on this vintagey card here. So now that that's all taken care of, I'm going to figure out kind of how I'm going to place things, and I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do about a sentiment. So I decided to go with just the Happy Trails sentiment that's in this stamp set rather than finding a happy birthday, just because I thought it was appropriate for my dad. And I stamped that in the same vintage photo distress ink right there on the bottom of that Polaroid. And I thought it looked a little empty, so I grabbed one of the little coordinating hearts that are in the stamp set. Lawn Fawn is super awesome about putting little detail stamps in all of their sets, and threw one of those on there. I cut down a piece of craft foam to go ahead and stick on the back of that little Polaroid there. And then I'm just going to kind of put that askew on the front of the card and pop it up. I love the dimension that this card ends up with. Like, I kind of love that the trailer is popping out of the photo, like Harry Potter style. Like it's like alive or something. I don't know. I just really dig it. A little foam tape on the back of the trailer is going to help me pop that up right in the middle of my scene there. And then for a finishing touch, I used some sequins that I had left over from a Close to My Heart project that coordinated, I thought, really well with the colors. You can see that really cool vintagey look. Here's a close-up of all the dimension that you get. I love the way this card turned out. I think it looks super, super fun. So thank you guys so much for joining me. I always love sharing my projects with you. If you like this video, please hit subscribe, leave me a comment. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Check out the description box for links to more crafty inspiration, and join me on Facebook, Pinterest, and Instagram. Thanks, guys. Bye.